What is up, everyone? My name is Chris Chan, and this is the #1 channel for senior care entrepreneurs. And today, we're gonna be talking about a professional employer organization versus a payroll service provider. So anyways, long story short, if you have a small business or if you're starting a small business and you're trying to decide, should I go with, Paychecks, should I go with ADP, should I go with Gusto, all these different companies, one of the questions you should be asking yourself first is, before you choose a company like that to help with all your payroll is do you want a professional employer organization, a PEO, or a payroll service provider? And they're very different. And it's something that I would say most business owners have no idea exists or really even understand the difference between the two until they use one, especially a PEO. Until they use a PEO, it's almost hard to understand what is the difference between a PEO and a payroll service provider, because this is the more common service that most people use. And so the biggest difference is, think of a PEO as a joint partnership. It's kind of considered co-employment. So under a PEO, what actually happens is, for instance, say company ABC company hires, an employee, John Smith, right? So they hire them for whatever that company is. Say you have a home care agency, say you have an assisted living facility you're starting out, or an adult daycare center. You hire this person on, they fill out your employment paperwork, but when you actually decide to commit to moving forward with that hire after their interview, then what you would do is you have them fill out paperwork that's specific to the PEO. And so what is ultimately going to end up happening is they're entering into this kind of co-employment situation where John Smith actually doesn't work for ABC company on paper. On paper, all of his taxes and all of the W-2s and all of the reporting information actually is filed on behalf of, say, PEO organization, Inc., right? So what's interesting about that is that when they get their checks, when they get their W-2 statements, any information regarding benefits and stuff is actually going to be coming from this other company called PEO organization, not from ABC company. So what ends up happening in this situation is, it's really cool about it is that it helps businesses share some of the cost of say workers' compensation and some other things. And there's some pluses and minuses to it. And we always recommend that you reach out to a PEO in your area as well as a PSP, because every state might be a little bit different the way they're regulated. But in the state of Florida, for instance, with a PEO, we pay a percentage of payroll. So, that rate might be 1%, it might be 5%, the range varies, and it ranges by company and by industry. But that percentage of payroll costs, what's nice about that is I can write as many checks as I want. Typically we pay weekly, but if we needed to send someone a check in the middle of the week, or if we needed to split something up, or if we forgot something, we needed to make a change, whatever the case might be, we're not paying any more for all those additional services. Where sometimes in a PSP relationship, you might be paying a certain dollar amount per check, or a certain dollar amount per employee, or a certain dollar amount per payroll period. So, if you pay weekly, you might pay more because you're paying every single week, as opposed to if you pay bi-weekly, where if you pay every other week in that case, then maybe you only get charged every other week as opposed to weekly. So the cool part about that is you have this percentage of cost. You're not having to worry about oh, I'm gonna spend X amount this month, I'm gonna spend X amount this month, depending on the number of checks I write, or depending on the number of pay periods I have. That you're just paying a percentage of your payroll cost. The other cool thing is that on the workers' compensation insurance side of things, a lot of times, if you're just starting out and you've never had workers' comp before, you may not be able to get a workers' comp policy, and you may not be able to get an affordable one because there is no history of claims. So a lot of times insurance companies don't want to necessarily take a risk on someone that doesn't have any loss run reports that they can pull from and see, have they had any really bad claims? Are they a responsible provider? A lot of times those loss run reports do fall off after a certain period of time. But if you're, like I said, if you're just starting out, it's a new company, you don't have any history, you don't have any experience, you might be uninsurable, or you might have to pay extremely high rates to get insurance. Where going with a PEO organization, they're taking that workers' comp and they're kind of sharing that risk amongst all of the companies that they work with and all the employees that they have. And so, even though you still have to be conscientious of your own safety practices and protocols, because it still can affect you, there is this ability to kind of go in, not having any previous experience, and being able to get a fairly decent, workers' comp rate for services. And a lot of times it's billed as a percentage of your payroll again. So it's helping you kind of understand and have a predictable cost that you know will be there based on your actual gross payroll figures. So that being said, it helps create some stability there. You're not worried about having to shop it out every time. The other nice part about it when it comes to handling claims is a lot of times the PEO organization, like say we have someone that maybe cuts their finger with a knife while they're cooking it home for a family, or whether they're working in our adult daycare environment and they're doing an activity and they throw out their back or something like that. In a situation when it comes to claims, we fill out a report, we send it to the PEO, and then literally the PEO handles it from there. They handle like what the employee needs to do. They talk to the insurance company, they work everything out. They advise you as to what you should and should not do as far as what is legal, what is not legal, as far as bringing that person back in a limited capacity or helping them get work in a different role at that company. So the nice part about it is the PEO kind of is your voice of reason. Is helping you stay compliant within the state laws, within the workers' compensation, like insurance, however they need to manage that claim. They help you out with all that stuff. Where sometimes on the other side of things, when it comes to the claims paperwork, and if you're working directly with an insurance company, it's like, on a PSP side, this company here, like a Paychecks, they might not be handling any of the workers' compensation claims and paperwork and all that stuff. They may have helped you get the insurance, but all of a sudden now you as the company, you're working directly with the insurance providers and having to come up with maybe the solution or direct that employee in the right place. But you may not have all of the knowledge of every single law that is in regards to workers' comp, or in regards to what you can and cannot do when it comes to bringing someone back on or keeping that person on payroll while they are out of work due to a workers' comp claim. So that being said, the PEO really kind of gives you that sense of freedom and just reassurance, knowing that hey, they understand the employment laws, they understand the workman's comp laws, they understand all the legality side of things, and they're advising us on what to do, and they handle 95% of all the paperwork. And where does that employee go? Who do they talk to? All those different things. The other thing would be when it comes to taxes. I'll never forget, we used a PSP originally, and I'll never forget one year I get this form and it was like a fine. Anytime you get a form and it says IRS on it, you freak out, right? Well, at least lately, I don't know. In 2020, if you got a form or if you got a letter in the mail that said IRS, it was probably a check, so it's probably a good thing, But prior to 2020, when you got a letter from the IRS, you freaked out. What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Well, long story short, I was using a PSP at the time, and for whatever reason, the way they calculated the taxes, for the federal unemployment taxes, it was off by literally $1.73 or something like that. So all of a sudden, I'm getting this form, and it was basically like a lien or whatever against the company for this $1.73 that was owed to them, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, what? I thought we took care of all this stuff. I thought that's why we hired them. Well, long story short, all of the responsibility, the checks and balances are still on you as the company when using a PSP. But if you're using a PEO, the reality of it is that employee technically on paper works for the PEO company Inc., not ABC company. So, if John Smith on paper is working for the PEO, it's the PEO's responsibility to make sure the taxes are filed properly. And the nice part about at least the PEO we work with is they send us a quarterly report from a third-party accountant, just verifying that all of the employment taxes were paid, giving you that reassurance, knowing, hey, all right, everything's taken care of, I don't have to worry about that. But even if something did come up, even though you might need to be aware of it and you might need to be understanding of what to do, the PEO is still the one responsible at the end of the day for making sure that those taxes have been paid properly and that money was accounted for properly. Last but not least, there's just the benefits, the HR, all the unemployment paperwork. The nice part about a PEO is they're kind of like full service. I mean, we call ours, if we would like to start a new PTO plan, or if we want to update ours, they go draft all of the information into a Word doc and craft it to our needs, and then make sure that it meets all of the regulatory guidelines of the state, and then hand it back to us, and it's like, here you go, ready to go. If we want to get benefits and work with, the health insurance side of things, or the financial services, such as a 401k, or if we want to add some a la carte benefits like vision and dental and some comprehensive medical type of stuff, they provide assistance with all of that and all the support and all the documentation and all of the guides that to actually give to our employees. They handle all of those things. If we let someone go, we fill out our termination agreement, we send in that with other information, we send it to the PEO, and they handle everything from there. If an unemployment claim comes through in the future and more information is needed, they're the ones handling all that documentation. Whereas if you're using a PSP, that you might have to keep records of all of that on hand. You're going to be the one that is going to have to go and work with insurance companies and try to make arrangements with different insurance companies and different workers' comp companies and different healthcare coverages and different financial services. You're gonna have to go work with different companies on those things and negotiate individual rates with each of those companies depending on the size of your organization. Whereas if you're with a PEO, those companies already have relationships with that PEO based on the size of the PEO's organization and the number of clients and employees that fall under them. So you're already kind of getting a much better group discount. You're getting much more HR and benefits support. It's a totally incredible experience. I understand that as companies grow, maybe through that 50 person organization, that 100, that 500, as they start getting to a point where they can have their own in-house HR and their own in-house solutions, and they might be able to go work directly with a insurance company and get a discounted rate because of the size of their organization. As they maybe go from 500 employees to 1,000 to 2,500, however that might be. I get how all of a sudden maybe that transition to a PSP makes sense because now you have a lot more in-house HR support and you're less reliant on the HR support of a PEO. But if you're just starting out, if you have just a handful of employees, if you have 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 employees, then when you're going through this process as a new business owner, especially that in senior care, when you have plenty of other problems to worry about, the last thing you want to worry about is all of these issues. Sometimes that PEO might be a great solution for you to get the workers' compensation insurance you need, to get that full HR and benefits support that you might need as a small company to stay competitive in an environment where larger companies are becoming harder and harder to compete against. So if you haven't already, make sure you take some time, go look into the difference between a PEO and a PSP. Maybe even ask yourself, do I know today if I even have a PSP, a payroll service provider, or a professional employer organization? Which one do I have? You might not even know. Make sure you go double check, find out which one you do have, and ask yourself, would it might make sense to switching over to a PEO? Does it make sense for us to stay where I'm at as a PSP? But I can tell you from experience, the benefits of a PEO, to me personally, in my own opinion, completely outweigh any of the services that a PSP has to offer. I know for sure we actually save money using a PEO with all the other costs associated with our payroll, and it's been one of the greatest investments we've made as a small organization to be competitive in this small business environment. So I hope this was helpful. I know there's a lot here. This still is a very complicated topic and it can be hard to truly explain in a short video like this. But if you do your research and you really, go visit with each company and understand, how they work, I think you'll find that, you'll be able to find the best one that is best for you and your situation. So that being said, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope this was helpful. I hope it was educational. Give me a little like, a comment, subscribe. If you made it this far, you guys rock. So appreciate you guys. Have a great day and we'll see you soon. Now let's get back to work. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me. If you'd like to learn how to open your own adult daycare center, go to adcpro.com. If you'd like the latest business tips, click here, and make sure you subscribe to our channel. Click here. We'll see you guys next time.